So again, hello everyone. I'm Kasey Austin, president of Austin Adventures, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar that I'll be doing with Austin Adventures CEO and founder and my dad, Dan Austin. And before we officially get started and I turn things over to Dan, I just wanted to go over a few how-tos for this webinar, which is being done via Zoom. I'm sure you all knew that, having gotten logged in today. And if you've made it to this point and you can hear my voice, the hardest part is behind you. Nice work. The first thing I would recommend doing is closing any other programs that you have open, as it'll help the pictures in the presentation look nice and clear, and the video, I think we have like one video in this thing, to not lag. Okay, so close your chat, close your email, that kind of stuff, and this will be nice and smooth. All right. And then at the bottom of the screen, there's a toolbar which has a few easy to use items. There's an audio settings button which allows you to adjust the sound if needed. And there's also a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and this stands for question and answer. If you click on this, you can type a question at any point during the presentation, and Dan and I are going to go through. We'll probably answer a lot of the questions throughout this presentation, but as we go through and I see something that flags our interest that we want to come back to at the end of the presentation, I'll click answer live and we'll come back to that at the end of the presentation. I'll ask the questions to Dan and one of us will answer your questions. All right. And last but not least, this webinar is being recorded and will be saved on our website, sent out if you don't get to watch the whole thing today afterwards. And you can also share it with anyone who might want to learn more about Austin Adventures and what we're doing during the time of COVID-19, all right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the reins over to Dan Austin here, although this isn't the last time you'll be hearing from me. So, hi Dan.
Thanks, Kasey, and welcome everyone. As Kasey noted, I'm Dan Austin, CEO and founder of Austin Adventures. And of course, you just heard from Kasey. She's now the president of the company, the heir apparent. I should have retired a couple of years ago and let her just deal with all this, but it's working out great. Thanks for taking the time, joining Kasey and I today. Again, we're going to give you a bit of an update on how we're adapting this new era of travel. As Kasey mentioned, please get your questions in. That's my favorite part of any presentation. I like reacting to the questions. So type them in. We'll get to them as many as we can. We'll actually stay on as long as we have to get to all of them. I'm going to go through this really fast. I want to be respectful of your time. We have a lot to cover today, and I want to get as much of it in as we can. So I am going to go fast, but again, we'll come back and visit any questions you might have. So with that said, let's get started. So today we're going to cover a bunch of different things. We're clearly going to get to the changes that COVID-19 has brought to us and the travel industry, but we're also going to talk a little bit about what we do, the value of travel, why it's important, why it's in our DNA, why should we take a little extra effort to keep traveling. Again, a reminder who Austin Adventures really is. And we get asked a lot, what makes us different? What is Austin? There's a lot of great companies out there. Who is Austin Adventures? What makes us different? We want to touch on the value of travel. I can't speak to this enough. It really, now more than ever, is coming so clearly important how travel is important it's in our DNA and it's important to our psyche. I want to cover what it means to travel in this environment and how we're handling safety concerns, what we're seeing out there. We're going to cover a little bit about what we do and where we're doing it and what we see in the future. I want to give a quick shout out to all those essential service providers out there. This is another one that means a lot to me. We came up with a contest to nominate essential service providers. Then, of course, we're going to wrap it up and get into the Q&A. So that said, let's get started. So the first thing we want to drill down is we want to drill down and remind us all why travel is so important. I mean, it really is. More and more studies coming out about how important travel is. We pulled these points off a recent study. Nothing new here. I do think creating memories needs to move to the top of the list. And when done right by companies like Austin Adventures, it clearly can reduce stress and allows you all to escape the barrage of negativity in our lives. A break from the news cycles that are just kind of endless these days. Connecting as a family should also be highlighted. That one is important to me. My family's been traveling since the kids were peanuts, and I literally, it means the world to us. I'd like to bring this a little bit closer to home for just a second. My kids grew up traveling. the world with me. They grew up not knowing borders, not stereotyping religions or cultures or ethnic background. This all added up to making them better students, more interesting friends, engaged and enlightened. Both went on to successful college studies and now entered the world ahead of the curve. They still travel to this day. They're passionate about it, and now they help me share that passion. Again, I just think it helped traveling starting at an early age just made them, I don't know, well-rounded individuals. And it really, I saw it firsthand how it helped them in their studies, and they go back to school and they had interesting things to talk about. So while we're in challenging times, it's important to dream big. This too shall pass. And when you decide to travel, whether it's this year or next, it's important to keep it all in perspective and keep that dream alive. There's huge value in travel. Okay, so as we struggle to understand the current limits of traveling, I want to quickly mention the value of travel isn't just while on the road. It starts with that planning process. Again, a lot of studies coming out on this, that a euphoric state when you know you have plans in place, or or that excitement of planning and picking your next destination. Even if you're not keen on traveling this year, we get that. Start thinking about what's next year. Start thinking about, what's to come. Start thinking about your next adventure and where you're going to go, and, do your research, study, ask friends, literally start digging into where might you want to go next year. I know personally, I think I sleep a little bit easier when I know I have my next trip on the books. Just last week, my wife Carol and I decided we're going to go to North Carolina this fall for the fall colors. Never been to North Carolina, but never been there in the fall. And we're pretty darn excited about going. So where are you going to go next? Let's not forget the impact. This one hits near and dear to our hearts because we work with so many unique people around the globe. Let's not forget the impact on the world economy. Travel is reported to be the largest industry in the world. I mean, it has the biggest impact on the world's economy. And there's a lot of destinations near and far that depend on travel. I mean, we see it here locally in Montana. We see these little towns right now that are the gateway, for example, to Yellowstone, that are struggling because they don't have the visitors. And then you see the village in Costa Rica or Peru, where without travelers, they really don't have an economy. And so in these challenging times, it's really important to remember that. And literally, as soon as we can get back traveling again, as soon as we can support those local economies, it's really important. And I, for one, am looking forward to it. So let's just take a second and absorb this. Who doesn't like a good Mark Twain quote? 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones that you did. So that just sums it all up for me. I love Mark Twain quotes, and that one right there hits home. I want to take just a minute and start this quick video. Love this video from some.
I used to plan all the details, everything, all the lodging, all the travel, all the food. This is done for you, and it's done well. It definitely is a good choice.
I always go on a family trip every summer, and this was a really fun one with Austin Adventures. I liked how we always had something planned to do every day. Just a really fun experience.
What I really value is the views, the different activities, the hiking, the rafting, being with the family. Those are memories that I'll be able to carry with me going forward.
I think it's so important for families to travel together. There's an education that you gain from being on the road. My daughter, she's at an age now, turning 13. There's that little bit of separation there. My daughter looked at me and she said, "Dad, can we do this again next year?" And for me, that really solidified it. I'd highly recommend it to anybody. You'll never forget it.
That's awesome. Actually, Kasey and I had the pleasure of joining a family yesterday just for the day trip. She took them rafting and I took them horseback riding. And as we sat around the campfire and had a little barbecue on the banks of the Yellowstone River, every single one of them said the exact same thing. They had like a 14 and a 15-year-old that were saying, "I can't believe we did this together." And they just literally, the parents were just beaming that the kids were still willing to travel with them. It actually, again, it brought it all home for us. So now let's talk about what makes Austin Adventures a bit different, hopefully in a positive way. We truly are a small, family-owned boutique tour operator. That's the best way to describe us. We're not the biggest by any stretch of the imagination, but we do like to consider we're the best. I mean, we really strive hard to really put out those personal touches. The whole family's involved in it. Many of you work with my wife, Carol. You see that big guy on the right, my son, Andy, out there shooting pictures and guiding. Every single guest, I find this kind of interesting, and I get challenged on it all the time. Every single guest gets my cell phone number, they get Kasey's cell phone number, they get Carol's cell phone number, and they're encouraged to call anytime. Before the trip, during the trip, after the trip. We like to say that we're available 24/7. And I'd like to see the big guys do that. It's impossible. The fact that we do keep the company small and real personal, it allows us to do that. But it's amazing those calls we get. You know, you call it, you miss a flight and you're panicking about getting on your trip. Give us a call. We'll figure it out. We'll make sure we're still there for you when you land. There's a lot of great adventure companies out there. We know you have a lot of options to who to travel with. It's our mission and our goal to earn your business from that first call to those final goodbyes. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but really that's the reward for us. When people once they find us and once they travel with us once, they keep coming back. And again, we've had guests travel with us. I think the record is 56 times, something like that. A lot in that 20 plus category, which is kind of fun and impressive. But 50 times, I got to take my hat off to that family. Kasey, let's tell us a little bit about our guides.
Sure, I'd love to. So we truly have a rock star guide team, guides who stuck with us for years and years. And funny enough, I grew up in this business and the guides of this company were my role models back in the day when I was a kid. And these guides are people who are passionate about the outdoors. They can connect with anyone with their fun personalities. And since I was 6 years old, I've observed these individuals and learned and practiced myself what it takes to be a truly incredible guide. And now, guess what? I'm actually in charge of hiring and training these people and this team. And our guide team is full of unique individuals who all have different skill sets, passions, and personal goals. However, this team is unified in Austin Adventure's mission of providing vacations of a lifetime. And if I've tried to get one thing across to this team in my constant correspondence with them, whether it's at guide training or talking on the phone or texting back and forth, it's to just always take customer service to the next level whenever possible. And I've always thought that anyone can go to a national park or another country and do a trip on their own, right? But what can our guides bring to the table? And what kind of value can a knowledgeable tour operator and a team of amazing guides provide during the planning process and the implementing of the trip? And I'll tell you what that is. It's above and beyond customer service at all levels. And these guides live, breathe, and love what they do. It's truly inspiring. I love our guide team.
I gotta embarrass Kasey and put her on the spot here for just a minute. One of the things that I've always just respected, Kasey does all the hiring and training of our guides, but she also walks the talk. 2014, Kasey was listed as the #1 guide in the world by Outside Magazine. And that's just a huge accolade. So I always like to embarrass her, you know, proud dad's got to throw it out there.
He always does this. I have no control.
Tell us a bit more, Kasey.
Sure. So this picture, I just love this one. It's a picture of all of our guides at last year's guide training. It just shows you how goofy and fun they really are. They're such a great team. And what I really like to promote about traveling with a professional guide is that you can count on your guide being the expert on the destination that you're traveling in. You know, what's that flower? What's the best pizza in town? What's the difference between a black bear and a grizzly bear? What are the best sites to visit in Yellowstone National Park? And more importantly, how should I go about getting the best experience seeing those sites given the limited vacation time I have? They'll never take you down a trail they haven't hiked a dozen times. They know all the best restaurants in the area, all the best hikes and bike rides, and perhaps most importantly, where all the bathroom stops are. And now more than ever, they're ensuring you are as safe as you possibly can be during the time of COVID-19. We're going to go over a lot more about operating in the time of COVID-19 here soon enough, so stay tuned for that. But back to the guides, they really are not only your travel companions, but they also just quickly become your friends on the trip. And they just happen to be experts in the area that you're visiting. And they're going to push you to expand your comfort zone just enough. They're encouraging, supportive, and trained to listen to what you're looking to get out of your trip. And of course, delivering on your high expectations. I just love this team of guides, and I know you are definitely going to as well.
Thanks, Kasey. This picture cracks me up. It was taken 20 plus years ago. That's Kasey on the right there. That's me with a little less gray. We've been creating trips and leading trips around the U.S. and the world for some 35 years. And over the years, we've learned what it takes to craft that perfect holiday, how to find activities, the best properties and partnerships. What is becoming more and more clear is what longevity earns you, right? I was on a trip yesterday. We had the pleasure of going horseback riding with the Davis family, 4th generation ranchers, and going on horseback for years now. Easy to find a horseback ride up into the hills, kind of a nose to trail product. We just go, with some stranger and go horseback riding and come back. But I just sat back and marveled at how cool it was when Martin Davis shared his love of the land. He shared his ranching business and what that means, and he talked about the reintroduction of wolves to the park and how that's affected him. But the fact is, those kinds of relationships take decades to build. You don't just stumble onto that type of opportunity. You have to look for them. Honestly, there's a bit of trial and error. Sometimes you don't usually hit it out of the park that first time. But we see more and more of that for us as we've been around for 30 plus years. Those partnerships and relationships mean the world to us, and they're super important. And what you're going to see is a lot of companies are now pivoting to domestic travel. Again, we've been doing it for 3+ decades. This is our backyard. So real quick, we're going to cover more in a few minutes, but we want to talk just literally what category of travel Austin Adventures fall into. Y'all know by now it's adventure travel. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people. We are a tour operator. We're not a travel agent. We're not a booking agent. We are an actual tour operator. Kasey talked a lot about our guides. Those are our employees. They work for us. They're part of our family. Over the last 35 years, we continue to add products as our guests ask for it. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But literally, again, we're in that adventure travel space. Cool thing is that adventure travelers are the intrepid travelers. They're actually the ones that are still traveling now, and they're going to be the first to come back. I'd like to talk a little bit for a second about our guests, because you're going to be joining these trips. You're going to meet a lot of great people. Who do we see on our trip? We see amazing people. They're inquisitive. They're interesting. That they want to be active. They're adventurous. They want to engage. They want to learn. They're just great traveling companions. I always say that 99% of our guests I would travel with personally, anytime, anywhere. They're just awesome. It's funny, our family trips are at 18 guests, and our adult trips are at a dozen, with a strict 6-to-1 guest guide ratio. You'll see a lot of companies out there bragging about small group size, and it cracks me up when I see these and I read and they consider 40 people a small group. No, we really believe that 10, 12, that's the perfect number, or even a family at 5 or 4. Kasey and I were down yesterday with a family of 4. To me, that was ideal. So again, keeping in mind that strict 6-to-1 guest to guide ratio, that allows every guest a great opportunity to interact with those ever important guides. Again, I mentioned this a minute ago, 99% of our customers say they would travel with us again, and 52% are on their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th trip. Again, that means just that speaks volumes. So let's talk about the value of Austin Adventures for a second. There literally are thousands of good tour operators out there. I know I could recommend 10 and even more options. You have even more options if you start thinking outside travel. You could just stay home and build that new patio or buy a new barbecue. We get that. Our goal is to earn your business and then work to keep it. It's not one and done. We're not looking just to get that booking and then move on. We want you coming back. We want you bringing your friends. We want you telling your friends. So our goal is to earn your business from that first call to those final goodbyes. We don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. All right, so why use a tour operator? I want to cover this for a few minutes. First, let's cover the generalities of using a tour operator. Why not just do it yourself? Some of this I've already covered. I'm now more convinced than ever that a good tour operator is worth their weight in gold, especially in the ever-changing COVID world. We're on top of the details so you can enjoy the moment, no stress. We often hear from our guests post-trip, this was their first true vacation. We know the best trails, we know the best viewpoint for that classic selfie, we know how to circumnavigate the crowds, the best restaurants, the best breweries. That's important, right? We have the long-term relationships we talked about with the locals, the hotels. We know where crosses the road. I mean, the guests literally going to get up. We know, we can tell you, we've got a pretty good opinion, a pretty good idea. We were there last week, we were there yesterday. We know where to see the best wildlife. Again, many of our destinations we've been operating in for decades, and you just can't buy that experience. And again, Kasey, we'll say it over and over again. The best darn guides on the planet. Kasey, you want to chime in?
Sure, I'd love to. I just had one example, I guess, I wanted to cover here, just on logistics from a guide perspective and the real value of using a tour operator in my mind. And I'm just going to use a typical morning in Yellowstone here, viewing Old Faithful Geyser from a normal person's perspective, a random traveler heading to the park on their own versus using a tour operator. So let's just pretend that you are a normal everyday traveler to Yellowstone National Park. And what's going to happen when you come into the park, if you haven't really done your research and don't really know what you're doing, is you're going to drive up to Old Faithful Geyser. You're going to drive around the parking lot for 20 minutes trying to find a parking spot. You're going to walk around for 20 minutes trying to figure out what time Old Faithful is going to go off. You're going to fight some crowds trying to find a spot to see the geyser. You'll watch the amazing spectacle. It'll be really cool. And then you're going to get in line with 300 other geyser gazers to order lunch at the Old Faithful Inn Cafe and try and find your own table and, you know, be standing in line and all of that really fun stuff that none of us are really wanting to do during the time of COVID, right? So the Austin Adventures way of doing the Old Faithful experience is for one guide to drop you off at a trailhead a couple miles away from Old Faithful Geyser, and you get to hike in the back way to Old Faithful. There's no people on these trails, and the further away you are, the less people you're going to see from these main sites, right? So you'll hike in the back way, you're going to stop along the way, you're going to see lots of cool hot springs and geysers that not a lot of people get to see. I'd say like 99% of people in Yellowstone are not seeing these sites. And the guide who is with you is in radio contact with the other guide who has already checked Old Faithful's eruption time and communicated the same to your guide that's with you. And the guide that's with you is going to adjust your hiking time, so you just happen to arrive to Old Faithful just in time to see that eruption. Ooh, it's so cool. And then you are going to head off to a beautifully prepared picnic lunch in a lovely forest clearing that was set up by your guide while you were out exploring. And then you get to sit back and just enjoy, you know, a lunch in the great outdoors. I mean, which experience sounds better to you? The one where you're getting there and you're stressed out trying to figure out what works and what time you need to see what and how to find a parking space? Or just this nice, clear, smooth day where you don't have to worry about a thing because the guides are doing the worrying for you? I know which one I'd pick.
I think I'm with you. So, you know, the other thing is just the seamless execution that goes on behind the scenes. We're constantly striving to even improve it. Every single trip gets reviewed every year, every week. We thoughtfully think through every moment of every day. You might not see that. You don't feel rushed. You don't feel like you're punching a time clock, but we're literally not wasting any steps, as Kasey pointed out. We always have, and this is more important than ever. We always have a plan A, B, C, D. A good example might be a recent Yellowstone trip a couple weeks ago. Was our first trip in Yellowstone for the year. Trip starts on Saturday morning. We get a call on Friday night that the local town that we were supposed to stay in that night had a problem with their water filtration plant, and they shut down all the hotels. Well, our guides quickly called us. We quickly made arrangements at another lodge, actually an even better lodge, another lodge nearby, and had everybody booked. Nobody even knew that we actually kind of had to do that behind the scenes, that literally that quick decision making that allowed us to keep the trip on pace. And it literally worked out perfect. Had you been on your own or had somebody been on their own, they would have showed up at that hotel that night. Hotel would have been closed, and then they would have been scurrying to try and find it. And at that point, every place within 100 miles was booked. So we're working, especially when we have people in the field, we're working 24/7 to stay ahead of the game and ensure that best possible experience, stress-free. I mean, that's literally what you're paying us for. This was a guest on that trip. I'll let you just digest that for a minute while I take a sip of coffee. All right, let's go. So yeah, that literally was a guest on that trip, and she was awesome. And I think that's what we're seeing more and more is that our guests that are traveling these times, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but our guests that are traveling during these times, they truly do need and have that spirit of adventure, and they're just rolling with it. It's been awesome. I wanted to take, and I know there's a lot of you joining this call today, a lot of our travel agents, travel professionals. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the travel professional family, our travel professional family. These professionals work tirelessly to help ensure you're on the right trip with the right tour operator, going to the right destination. They're the expert in your corner. They add another layer of expertise and protection. I call it belts and suspenders. A good agent working with a good tour operator ensures a great trip. They handle all the details from the flights to the pre and post accommodations to the timing of that all. They know what you're looking for. They know what we offer. They know the ropes, and they know they have incredible value. Yes, you can book your flights online, but try changing, or heaven forbid, a flight gets canceled. Who are you going to call? If you go through a travel agent versus online, you give them a call, and they're going to work with you and help it out. They're like us. They're on the clock, trying to make sure that trip goes through without fail, fabulously, and no hiccups. I just can't speak highly enough of these folks in our relationship with them. They are your advocate, and will make sure you get what you're looking for. And again, that's whether it's with us or any other travel opportunity. They literally are working for you. So it just kind of adds another layer. They know you, they know us, they put together the right package, the right plans. We detail it and execute it, and they are go-to experts on travel in any genre. They know the landscape, they know your options, not just adventure travel. Like working with a tour operator, we've just never seen a time in our 35 plus years where agents have been more valuable. Again, there really is too many good reasons to use a qualified agent, not much of a downside. There really isn't a downside. They literally are an extra layer of protection for you. We work closely with our agent partners to craft the perfect adventure. Honestly, some of the agents we work with, they're pretty demanding, more demanding than our customers. They are on the phone all the time, making sure their customers get what they're looking for. They represent you, the traveler, and make sure you get exactly that. Get what you paid for, you get what you're looking for. So shout out to our partners out there. You guys are awesome.
Woohoo!
All right, here it is. This is what a lot of you signed on for. We're going to go through it pretty quickly, but we want to talk about the tough part. This is what you came to hear. Let's talk about what it means to travel today and how we're going about keeping you and yours safe. The landscape is changing every day. Again, I'll use another real-life example. We had guests scheduled for Zion National Park on the 30th, and Zion came out on the 29th with new rules and regulations. Because we're on the, on our ears to the ground, for lack of a better way to put it, we actually got ahead of it, and we're able to see that guest got exactly what they were looking for. It wasn't without a lot of scurrying behind the scenes, but again, that guest didn't see it because we were working with the National Park Service, and we made sure we were on top of it. So in this crazy changing environment, tour operators have never earned their keep quite like we are now. We are the front lines, monitoring every minute, literally every minute. I don't think, Kasey will agree, I don't think we've worked this hard in our 30 years as we are now. So I've been in this business some 30 years, as I've said many times. To say that I've ever seen anything remotely like this would be an understatement, not even close. We've worked through fires and floods and earthquakes, civil unrest, terrorist actions, a few pandemics, all pale to what we're dealing with now. We honestly feel we've been a bit ahead of the curve. I was actually in Mexico in February and came home early because we started seeing things shake out around the globe. We wanted to get ahead of it. We think we've been ahead of it. We've been reacting accordingly. Back in late February, early March, we started getting the wind of this horrible virus. We immediately adopted what I called the ABCs of crisis management, and it was to anticipate, be honest, and communicate. And we've been literally living by that to this day. We immediately started talking to all of our guests that were already booked. We immediately liberalized our cancellation policies and tried to remember we're all human and we're all on this together. And unofficially, we adopted the only policy is no policy. We literally worked every single situation independently and as a unique situation. It's really served us well. Today, we've not had one single chargeback, which we're really proud of. That's kind of a milestone that we're determined to keep. A lot of tour operators have not been so lucky, or so, and again, I just think it's how we've handled it. Early on, we changed our marketing communication strategy from the, slick, glossy sales messaging, buy this trip, buy that trip, to really what we just started was just notes from me. Every couple of Saturdays or a couple times a month, I'd send out just an update on what's happening in our world of travel. Maybe a little bit of inspiration, maybe a little bit of humor, but it really was just from me to you about how we're going to get through this. We were one of the first to realize travel agents were getting hit every bit as hard as we are, and we changed our commission structure to get agents at least a bit of income at the time of booking. Traditionally, they get paid after the guest travels. So that's gone over quite well. Again, we really respect and appreciate our travel agent partners, and we were glad to do that for them. Early on, we brought our guide teams in. Kasey hosted a weekly, we called it cocktail hour with our guides, Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Guides are all over the country. And we'd have Zoom meetings where we started embracing their ideas. What did they think it was going to take to actually execute on a trip? So we really brought them into the fold because they're the front lines. We want them to feel safe, but we also wanted them to be thinking, how are we going to execute once the time comes? We did the overused word, right? We're all talking pivot. Yes, we did pivot a few times with some new product offerings. We added RV trips, homestays, and day trips. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We managed to keep our entire team intact. Frankly, I don't know what we would have done without them. We were busier than ever, whether it be moving guests, canceling guests, new product offerings, custom trip requests, figuring out. Kasey's been working triple overtime, working with the National Park Service on how we're actually going to execute some pretty demanding guidelines. Again, behind the scenes, we were working tirelessly to make sure that in the field, those that chose to travel were still getting an amazing experience. As I mentioned, we quickly revised our policies and posted them on the homepage. I think we were the first to do that. We literally took a look at all of our cancellation policies, put it up on the homepage. It's still there now. We've revised it a couple of times, always trying to make it more liberal, if anything. Our goal, of course, was to encourage rebookings or postponing, not canceling. And I have to say, as I mentioned a minute ago, our guests have been nothing shy of amazing. They really have been understanding. They get it. We're all in this together. We literally worked through 1,000 plus cancellations, all in the amazing spirit of we're in it together. I found it fascinating that only 14% of our actual guests that were booked canceled and are just literally holding off traveling. Many elected to postpone till 2021, and some elected to postpone for later this year and are still traveling. I find it fascinating that actually in these challenging times, 25% of our guests are still going to get their travels in this year. Kasey, tell us a little bit more about what it takes in the field. This is the tough part.
Yeah, this is probably what a lot of people have been wondering. What exactly are you doing out there? How are we operating our trips? I know someone in the Q&A already had asked, are you guys running trips right now? The answer to that is yes, we are running trips just so far in the Yellowstone area and starting in the Tetons as well this upcoming week. Oh, and I guess in Alaska, we're actually running our first trip there right now as well. We have definitely limited our destination options to places that we feel fairly comfortable operating in, but we are running trips. So, so let's go back to that question. How are we operating trips in this strange new world that we're living in? And I'll say it definitely is a bit strange. Just yesterday, like we said already, Dan and I were out guiding a day trip together, and I got geared up to go on a rafting trip with 4 guests, and I was in a mask, gearing up, getting my life vest on and my wetsuit and all that stuff. We didn't have to wear the masks on the river, but, it's still a little bit strange walking around the rafting base with my mask on and seeing everyone else with their masks on. So, it's a little bit different, but it honestly was not that bad. It just, felt safe, if anything, if I was going to be out there doing that kind of activity. So let's just touch base on a few more points of how we're running trips during the time of COVID. So first of all national parks are requiring 10 passengers or fewer in a 15-passenger van, or you can use a bigger vehicle if you have one. And we're sticking to that policy and introducing a second and sometimes third vehicle onto each trip on an as-needed basis. We're just looking at them individually each trip, kind of the makeup of the families and that kind of thing before we decide what we're officially going to do. It's all individual decisions. And, you know, that allows us to provide as much physical distancing as possible in the van. So that's probably where you're the most cooped up on any of our trips, is in the vehicle. So within the vehicles themselves, any high touch surfaces are being cleaned every time guests exit the van, you know, the door handles and things like that that people are touching constantly. And then at the end of the day, we're doing a deep clean, which, to be honest, is not normal for us. We always do a deep clean at the end of every day, but I guess if anything, we're doing even more of a deep clean these days. And our guides also have guests sanitize their hands before they enter the van every time. We just have a guy literally standing out there with their little Germ-X pump, click, 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 into the hands of every guest that's getting into the vehicle. So lunchtime also looks a little bit different, I guess just meal times in general. We're still providing our big, beautiful picnic lunch spreads, but we're also providing hand washing stations at lunch, not to mention wet ones on the table, endless amounts of hand sanitizer. If there's an actual bathroom available, you can go wash your hands there and then come back. Guides will also have disposable gloves on when they're serving meals or preparing meals. They have masks on while they're serving meals. And we might still have like a buffet style lunch where you're going through a physically distanced line. And you get to pick, you know, what goes on your taco or your salad or your sandwich, but your guides will be the ones handling the food. So they'll have the gloves on, the masks, and they'll, you know, you point to what you want and they'll put it onto your plate for you. So not everyone is touching the tongs at lunchtime. And best of all, you're eating outside in the open air. So, you know, we've always had lunch in the great outdoors, and to be honest, that's just the best place to eat during this time. So we're sticking to that. And we're also providing Austin Adventures guests with like a, I guess it's called a buff to wear on your face, those ones that go all around your head. You can bring your own mask, whatever you want, but you do have to have a mask for our trips, not to wear it every single moment of the day, but we are asking and recommending our guides and guests to wear them in public areas where you can't physically distance from others, and whenever we're indoors, not like in your hotel room, but in a hotel lobby or a visitor center or something like that. And we have had all of our guides tested for COVID-19 at the beginning of the season, and we're continually testing randomly as the season continues. And anytime our guides ask for a test, we will of course deliver and pay for it for them. We're definitely not against testing, and encouraging our guests as well to get tested before they come on their trip. It's actually a requirement for our Alaska trip to get tested within 72 hours because the state of Alaska is requiring that right now. So we actually like and respect that, go Alaska, and we're encouraging it with our guests as well. So I just have to say as well that the partners we work with around the national parks, the hotels, our subcontractors who we operate our rafting and horseback riding with, and the restaurants we're using as well are doing really well adjusting to the current times. It's been crazy. There's no real blueprint of what exactly anyone should be doing, but each individual place we've been working with has implemented their own individual safety protocols that we are abiding by on all of our trips, and we're just all figuring out this new normal together. And after all this is said, the one thing I'll end with here, I could probably keep going. We have like a 10-page operating plan, but I'm not going to get too deep into the details. But the one thing I do have to say is after having operated a handful of trips this season already, the guests who've traveled with us so far have truly just enjoyed getting out there and going on vacation. And sure, there's some new protocol that we have to abide by now, but it's hardly an issue if you're okay with just following a few extra rules. And the main goal in running trips during the time of COVID-19 is to keep everyone safe first and foremost, while simultaneously allowing our guests to escape the stress of this new normal, because I know everyone's a bit stressed out right now, and to just enjoy the great outdoors and great company. So I just don't think you can really ask for much more than that right now. I could use a vacation as well myself, in fact.
Thanks, Kasey. You know, I got to give a shout out to the National Park Service, our partners like the concessionaires in the park, Xanterra and others. They've really done an amazing job staying ahead of this and coming up. There is no playbook. There really isn't. And they're having to think on the fly, change things today, readjust tomorrow. But they have really been good to work with. Their communication has been excellent. Kasey did have to put together a very detailed, as she says, 10-page plan. But again, we had a lot of good support from both the CDC as well as we've been following the airlines. A lot of the airlines are doing phenomenal. I feel safe flying now. I haven't yet. My wife always reminds me it's the longest I've ever gone without getting on an airplane. But we've been watching them closely, and they're doing great. So we've been following their lead on a lot of our protocol. So it's been really great to see the teamwork that's going into this. So while we've been dealing with constant change, we do have to think on the fly, and we have to make sure that when we do change something on a trip, we actually try really hard to change it for the better. Those electing to travel now will be rewarded with fewer crowds. More importantly, that break from that day to day. I was just down in Yellowstone, as we've mentioned a couple times, and once we got away from the gateway cities, it was amazing to see how fewer people there were, but also how responsible people were. Again, no disrespect to our big city friends, but I see all the challenges in the big cities and stuff. Getting out in these small towns, getting out in the environment, everybody's working together to stay safe. It's been pretty impressive. I think all the experts agree that the great outdoors is absolutely the best place to be right now, both mentally and physically. We get so caught up in all the negativity around us. Getting out and enjoying this great, big, wonderful planet is so necessary, more now than ever. It's just so important to remember that. And even if at home, I remember when they had the stay-at-home orders. It didn't mean you couldn't go out in your backyard. It didn't mean you couldn't go for a hike. It didn't mean, a lot of those kinds of things, or go for a bike ride. I think getting out and getting outside is just now, again, more important than ever. We're just happy to be able to do that to a much lesser degree than we normally would, but it's been pretty rewarding to talk to the guests, to talk to the guides about actually getting out. So the only thing we truly ask of our guests now more than ever is that anybody that comes, you have to have that spirit of adventure. Things are going to change. We are going to be have some curveballs thrown at us, but you need to leave that baggage at home. You come ready to come enjoy the landscape and just escape, get into the great outdoors, and just kind of appreciate your traveling companions. That's really the only real rule we have, is just come with that spirit of adventure. All right, that was a lot to cover. Again, I'm sure you're going to have a lot more questions on that. We'll talk about it more down the road. Again, we're going to talk really quickly a little bit about our product. I am going to go fast, speed things up a little bit here, and see if we can get through a lot of this. We do like to believe we truly have something for everyone, now more than ever. If you don't see what you're looking for, simply call and ask. If we don't do it, I likely know who does. We'll recommend them to you. As I mentioned earlier, family travel is huge for us. Twice voted the #1 family tour operator in the world by the Readers of Travel and Leisure. That said, we do a lot more than just family adventures. And again, if we don't do it, call. We'd be happy to recommend somebody. So I want to talk about our product, scheduled departures. That's about, 70% of what we do. What that simply means is that trip is scheduled to depart on Sunday morning for the week, around a lot of different destinations around the country, and you would sign on for that scheduled adventure and with traveling companions from all over the country, and you'd join for that week. They're all posted on the website. 2021 is up on the website. We do have a small handful of 2020 left, a few spaces left, but not a lot. But again, you can find those weekly scheduled departures waiting for you and yours. You're going to join like-minded travelers. You're going to create friendships that last a lifetime. You might come as strangers and you're going to leave as family. And it's amazing how quickly those groups gel. Again, we see this all the time. That common denominators are travelers, are adventurous. They like meeting new people. They're inquisitive. They're educated. It's just great. So what we often see is they may come as strangers, and then next year they come and travel together as a group. This is the part of the business that this customs and exclusive is the part of the business that we're actually seeing explode in this time of COVID-19. We saw it increasing in popularity probably for the last 10 years, but now more than ever, it's absolutely taking off. So real quick, a custom is simply that. You dream it, we can build it. And you would not believe what we've built. We've been challenged with some pretty over-the-top trips over the years. Could be just your family. Trip that Kasey and I joined yesterday was a custom trip for just 4. Literally, could be a multi-gen trip of 18. It could be one destination. It could be 4 or 5. We've done 5 national parks in 7 days by private jet. Again, if you can dream it, we can build it. An exclusive a lot like a custom. It's literally just for you, but you're just taking over one of our scheduled departures, one of our set itineraries with a group of family, friends, you name it. You just get together, you say, I like that July 15th Yellowstone trip. We book that, set that aside just for you. You pick the destination, you pick the dates, and again, we block that trip off for you. Homestays, new part of what we're doing. We've been working on it for a couple of years, actually pre-COVID. But literally what this is just literally we take over a mountaintop estate or a beach house or you name it. We take over a home for you and yours, your family, your traveling companions, your friends. And then we provide all services you need, whether it be a chef, guides, drivers, cleaning services, you name it, just like any other trip. We're active by day, going back to the lodge. I like to refer to it as a hub and spoke model. A good example of programs we've got scheduled for here coming up in a couple of weeks. I actually been working on it all day today. As we've secured a 7,000 square foot mountaintop estate for a family of 15 celebrating a 50th birthday. We're providing guides, drivers, chef, cleaning crew, all of the activities. We've created a whole menu of activities from hiking to ATV rides, you name it, all from this one base station. And we're seeing that again in the COVID-19 world being quite popular and growing every day. Austin Concierge, we created a couple of years ago by request. This is the self-drives. This is if you really don't think you're cut out for the group tour or for joining others and you like that independence, we will create the itinerary, we'll book the hotels, we'll schedule day guides, we'll schedule all of the activities, whether it be rafting or horseback riding, whatever it is. But you're all on your own. I mean, literally, we put the itinerary together and put together a package for you, and then you take off on your own. We talked about pivoting, an overused term. Well, this was our first official pivot. Over the years, we've always been asked to do RV trips, and we've always just said, well, it's just not what we do. My wife and I, Carol, own an RV. We actually have been traveling the States a lot lately, the last few years. And we just kept getting asked, and we saw in the time of COVID-19, what better way to visit our national parks than your own contained unit, right? Your own little vessel. And so we decided to put these programs together, and it's been a lot of fun. I do a lot of it myself. Casey's kind of cleans up after me. But literally, the group we visited yesterday, they were on day 12 of an 18-day RV trip. We'll rent the RV, we do the route, we secure the camp spots, we arrange for the activities, we arrange for day guides. In this particular case, these folks wanted a couple of days out of the RV in a lodge, and it's been a lot of fun. We see it literally kind of growing rapidly, and I think we're going to see more and more of this. We're actually going to work on some fun ideas of actually a caravan, 3 or 4 families in RVs, following one of our guides through the national park. So keep an eye on this in the years to come. We're actually having a lot of fun with it. So what's out there? Kasey mentioned it a minute ago, are we traveling? Yes, we are. Early on in the pandemic, before we really knew what we were dealing with, I shared the 4 phases of crisis, right? Fear, understanding, action, and rational behavior. The first 2 to 3 stages were pretty tough. What I think we're seeing now is gradually entering phase 4, rational behavior. For us, that meant looking at all of our offerings and determining what trips and destinations we honestly feel we could execute safely to our standards. It ended up being a pretty short list, short but sweet. While we're running about 20% of what we typically would see this summer, we do have a few select trips running. Kasey mentioned Alaska, Montana, Yellowstone, down in Utah, our Canyonlands trip, and again, the homestays. But it's been really there. So there are limited opportunities for travel in 2020, and we're addressing those as they come up. As I mentioned earlier, though, planning is a big part of the process. We're really getting excited about 2021. Domestic travel is going to be hot in 2021. There is no doubt about it. Our 2021 dates are on the website. Schedules are up on the website, and you can go visit there and see all the different trips. I don't know, Kasey, how many trips we got? Probably 40 different itineraries. You can pick your dates, your itineraries. And booking 2021 will give you both both of us something to look forward to, as well as you something to look forward to. And again, it's kind of fun to start bragging about, where are you going? Where am I going? I'm going to North Carolina for the fall colors this fall. Where are you going next summer? And start planning on that, having that to look forward to. Real quick, it typically takes a $500 deposit for each traveler. I'm going to break news to my staff right now. We're actually going to drop that to $250. Secures your spot for even our most popular destinations for next year. So if you hang up and call right now, nobody back at the office, unless they're watching this, knows we're doing that. But we're going to go ahead and drop that to $250 just to give you something to look forward to. I think right now more than ever, we all need something to look forward to.
I'm gonna write that down so I just don't forget after this.
So we are watching the global scene closely. Obviously, the global scene was the first affected by COVID. We started seeing it in our Southeast Asia trips and our Latin America trips early on. And now what we're seeing, and it's pretty refreshing, we're seeing a lot of countries around the globe starting to open up. Unfortunately, many are doing better than we are on opening up. They got ahead of it early. They got it under control. They locked their borders down. They took some really severe actions, but now it's starting to pay off. So we're starting to see openings. We're actually, a few are already open, and more coming online every day. Iceland, one of the first. They've done amazing. Costa Rica has done amazing, and they're opening up. There'll be opportunities to travel to Costa Rica this Christmas that typically you would never have because it's sold out. So literally they're starting to open up. Look at it as an opportunity. The Galapagos locked down early on. They locked down to protect the Galapagos and protect the people of the Galapagos. And now they're starting to figure out how can they safely open up. Another great opportunity. So we're starting to turn our focus to international trips on 2020 and 2021 and beyond. Yes, there are opportunities this year, but really it's going to take a few years. So we're really just kind of starting to watch those countries that are emerging, that are doing well. I listed here our top 10 international destinations: Peru, Spain, Holland, Germany, Austria, Costa Rica, Kenya, Tanzania. Kenya just announced today they're opening up. So things are changing every day. Vietnam, Thailand, and again, Iceland and the Galapagos. So, international travel might slow for a bit, but it definitely will come back, and it's coming back strong. As I said, 2021 is going to be a big year. Literally, though, in all honesty, we're looking forward to seeing 2020 in our rearview mirror. It's been tough, and we just want to get through it and move on to better times ahead. And again, as part of that, what we're going to do is we're going to honor 2020 pricing in 2021. We want to forget about 2020 as best we can. But let's remember the pricing of 2020 and apply it to 2021. Okay, so couple last things, and we're going to get to Q&A. We're almost there. Another thing that we realized early on is that while we were struggling and we were doing all this crazy stuff to keep live and keep the business moving forward, there was a lot more people out there working diligently. That we all went to working from home. The entire office went to work from home. I'm still at home, but there was people that couldn't do that. That still went in every day. Whether it be your UPS driver, right? I got to be good friends with my UPS driver, bringing those Amazon packages every day, or the nurse or the nurse or the doctors in the hospitals, or the police. You name it. There was a whole bevy of people out there that didn't have the same luxuries we did of going home or not going in, and so we wanted to create something special for them. So we created our ESP contest, and literally all it is, pretty simple, is we asked people to nominate an essential service provider, and at the end, I think October 1st, we're going to pick 25 essential service providers out of this list, and they're all going to get something. They're all going to get a backpack full of swag, and then out of that 25, we're going to randomly draw one more for a free trip to Yellowstone for next year for a family of 4. And pretty excited about that. You can go to the website. You can see it there. There's a link, and it's actually kind of neat to read all the nominations. So they're all posted on the website, pictures, a little bit about them. And some of these stories are pretty heartbreaking. I mean, these people are giving it their all. So it's just our little way of showing support and thanking them. And you can do the same thing by literally nominating them. So, get out there, nominate your mail person. Get out there, nominate your UPS guy, your doctor, your nurse, you name it. There's a lot of qualified people out there that they're deserving of getting nominated for this award. And you can just go to the website. You'll see it there on the home page. Click it and nominate away. Okay, we're getting close, folks. I'd like to wrap this up by just really saying thank you. And I mean, thank you for joining us today. But the support we've been given and rewarded with the last 4 months has been phenomenal. Literally, it's times like this that I think bring out the best of people. And our guests, our travelers, people that, you know, booked trips and couldn't go, they've just been all so awesome to work with. It's been really refreshing, actually. And so I want to just, again, shout out to those great intrepid travelers that just literally appreciate what we do, appreciate how tough of times we're in now. Look forward to traveling again soon. I just want to, again, I can't say thank you enough. It's been actually, it's made a tough situation actually quite rewarding and quite manageable. So last up real quick before we get into the Q&A, call us, email us, visit us online, go on Facebook. Any way you need to send up smoke signals. We'll find, you know, whatever it takes, reach out, ask your questions, challenge us. Literally, we're here for you. That's what keeps us in business. So with that said, let's get started with Q&A. Kasey, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Cool. Sounds good. We got a bunch of questions, so I hope you're ready. And Dano, don't forget to just keep on rolling through those pictures as we're going through as well, since you're.
I'm going to throw the tough ones back at you, so just so you know.
All right, cool. So we have a really deep question first. It is, how would you describe your company's core values?
Company core values. I mean, it comes down to uncompromised, unparalleled customer service. That's really, and I'm not sure if that quite answers that question, but that's what we're passionate about. And again, everything is related to that. So I'd say our core value is uncompromised customer service. That's what we're passionate about. That's what we strive for. And that doesn't mean just on the trip, before, during, and after. That's at all times.
I would add that we are a family-owned and operated company, and we treat every one of our guests and staff like they are family. We want you to feel like you're just another member of the family traveling with us and working with us. And so any, you know, value that you could think of that you would have with your family, we probably also have those same values. And, you know, that's what getting to work with a small boutique tour operator is like. That's run by a family. So good stuff.
Well said.
All right. So Cindy wants to know, what options are there for, this one's a little bit long, so bear with me. Are there for single active adult travelers? And do you charge extra, like a single supplement fee, yet offer single lodging? And are there activities in the national parks and other places where this person can join others to hike, cycle, kayak, explore? She's fine with doing things alone, but also likes to join others for some things to have some safety, support, camaraderie, that kind of thing.
Can I just say yes? Is that a good enough answer? Yes. Absolutely. You know, you bet. I mean, literally single travelers, not a huge portion what we do, probably 10%, maybe a little less than that. And we do have a single supplement policy, which means all pricing is based on double occupancy. But if you want to travel by yourself, you can pay a small a fee to actually get that room for just yourself. If you want a traveling companion, if you sign up, Kasey probably knows better than I. If you sign up, I think it's 90 days out or more. If we find you one, great. If we don't find you one, you don't have to pay the single supplement. We're always, just like we're saying with a lot of other things, just call us and we'll figure out the right trip. We'll talk about it. Yes, there is a set policy, but we're always willing to look to see what it might take to top that trip off. If we have somebody that's looking for a roommate, and then all of our trips are designed to give you exactly what you're looking for. So literally, if you want to go, you know, cycling with the group one day, but then you want a couple of extra miles, the guides are there for you to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. A little bit of downtime, a little bit of alone time, and a little bit of group time. Kind of that magic chemistry that comes out of a trip.
Yeah. So I had a couple of questions about just flying. Some people are thinking the reason why some people aren't wanting to go on trips is because they're not feeling safe flying, especially from some of these hotspot destinations. We have Kyle here asking, how can I convince my family it's safe to even fly these days? And what have we been telling travelers who are concerned about this kind of thing, I guess?
Well, I think the airlines have done a great job. I'm not afraid to fly right now. I don't have any place to go today, but I'm not afraid. Kasey and I were actually almost going to go to Alaska a couple of weeks ago. It's another story, but I wasn't afraid to fly. I think the airlines have done an amazing job, both with their sanitation process, the HEPA filters in the airplanes, the way they're cleaning them between flights, the way they're requiring masks and sanitizing and all that. I think they've actually done a great job. To that, though, I will also say a lot of our guests are electing drive-to destinations. We have a program in North Carolina that our guests are actually driving to from New York City, for example. That's one way people are getting around it. The RV thing is another. And then we're also seeing a lot of private jet charters, more than we've ever seen. And so you're not alone. Everybody's questioning that. And again, I think the airlines, I think they've done an exceptional job. And I would not be afraid to fly, but you got to do what you're comfortable with. And again, maybe consider for this year, consider a drive-to destination.
Yeah. And I would also have to just add that it really is, you're either comfortable with traveling right now or you're not. If you are not comfortable, put your traveling off. Like, we're not going to force anyone to travel when they don't want to. So it's all about what your comfort level is. And we have been working with each individual family, each individual couple, just to determine their comfort level, get them transferred to 2021 if they're not comfortable traveling this year, or get them booked if you're just wanting to get something on the books for next year. But we also have been getting a ton of interest for just last minute 2020 stuff this year as well, for people who are like, I'm going for it. So awesome. So Ray saw some people biking in the video that we showed, and he's saying that he prefers riding like a Dutch low step bike where you can kind of step through, I guess. Is it possible to request a specific bike for our tours, or are the bikes limited to one type that everyone uses? And what kind of bike tours do we offer?
So most of our trips are multi-sport, meaning you're biking, you're hiking, you're rafting, you're horseback riding, whatever the case may be. We do have a few dedicated cycling trips, mostly in Europe. And what we have electric bikes. Everybody always asks that question as well. We currently use a Trek hybrid mountain bike. It's kind of a cross between a mountain bike and a road bike. In Europe, we have probably a little bit more focused on road bikes because it's almost all paved trails. What we always suggest is just let us know what you're looking for. If we don't have it in our fleet, we can all look to rent it or come up with it. So literally whatever you're looking for, when you find that trip, we don't want that to be a deal killer for you. So when you find that trip you're looking for, just ask, and we'll do our best to make sure that we get you that specific bike that you're looking for.
Perfect. I just had to throw this comment in here that this person had 2 adult clients go on our Montana trip in August 2018, and they raved all about it, especially their great guides. I just love that they put that in there. Thank you. All right, so Bill is asking, do your guides lead the overseas trips, or do you contract with local companies overseas?
Great question. Really good question. So I always look at it like 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is domestic. Those are our vans, our bikes, our guides out of our home office here in Montana. Europe, we have an office in Nijmegen, Holland. Again, same thing. Our vans, our bikes, our guides out of our office in Nijmegen, Holland. And then internationally, what we typically do is, and it's usually Kasey and I, we'll go into the country. We want to work with locals. The last thing I want to do is send a guy from Montana to Costa Rica to guide a trip in Costa Rica. So we want that if you go to Costa Rica, you want a Tico guide. You want a Costa Rican guide. So what we typically do is we find a small, similar boutique tour operator or with the same values that we have. And then Kasey and I train the guides. We actually we create the program with them. We make sure they've got all the same safety protocol, the same insurance protocol, and then we work directly with them to hand pick guides and train them in the Austin Adventures way. And again, we do that internationally, like in Costa Rica, in Peru, Southeast Asia, Africa. Those places, we're not running a lot of those trips. So we can't really have a base of operations there, but we want to work with the locals. So we find that local, and then once we find the right one, it doesn't always happen the first go around. Once we find that right one, we work with them to continually work with them and train them. For example, I think we've been with our Peruvian partner for now going on 20 years, Costa Rica probably 20 years, Southeast Asia 10 years. So we're always looking to find those best partners in country.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And Barbara is wondering how long a hike is, like how long of a hike are the ones that we have on our Yellowstone trips, for example, and what is the level of difficulty?
Kasey, you're a perfect one to answer that.
Sure. So our Yellowstone trip, I guess, is more one of our, I guess what you could call one of our introductory trips. It's not just hiking on that trip. We do zip lining, we do rafting, we do horseback riding on that trip as well. It would be considered, I guess, probably somewhere between a 1 and 2 on a scale out of 5 if I were to rate it. But the hikes are, I guess, probably the longest one you're going to go on is 2.5 to 3-ish miles. You might go a little bit further if you have a hardy group who's wanting to go further. The best part about having multiple guides on your trip is that we can also extend hikes for those that want to go further, and we can shorten hikes for those that don't want to go as far. So we're pretty flexible, and we can handle pretty much all levels, I would say, on most of our trips, as long as you're willing to get out there and get a little active. So,
well, I think that's what I was trying to say earlier is literally with that 6-to-1 guest to guide ratio, those guides are always listening. Always. That's what we teach them. Listen. If you listen hard enough, every guest will tell you what they're looking for. So if you want a longer bike ride, these guys, they'd love to go for burn up an extra 10, 15 miles after the day. Or you want to go for an early morning jog on the trails in Yellowstone. They're going to, one of the guys is going to say, I'd love to go for a run with you. Same thing with the hiking. Literally, they're always listening and looking to get you exactly what you're looking for. And that's the benefit of small group adventure travel.
All right. And I'm guessing this is a travel agent maybe, but I'm not sure. But she's asking, do you work with or recommend specific travel agents?
We can't play favorites. So we definitely work with, we have some agents that are just diehard Austin Adventures fans. I work with one particular agent almost every day. He's just amazing. So literally, yes, we have the agents that literally, we do a ton of business with, but we're open to all agents. We're Virtuoso preferred supplier. And literally, we will work pretty much with any and every agent. And unfortunately, no, I would get in trouble if I picked one and did referrals.
Very, very true. Simone is asking, do we offer anything in the southeast part of the states currently?
Southeast, no, we don't. North Carolina is closest probably we have to southeast. We're looking at Tennessee. We've done a few custom trips down in Florida. We've done a few custom trips up and we've done trips in Maine and New Hampshire. And we're definitely looking at it. Pre-COVID, I was actually literally pre-COVID, I was going to go back east. I was going to go to North Carolina for 3 months with Carol, and we were going to start developing our East Coast presence. But then COVID hit, I decided to stay closer to home. So definitely looking at it, definitely open to suggestions, and kind of have our eyes wide open what that might look like.
Awesome. All right, and Melody is asking, what percentage of your guests book direct with you or with, hold on. What percentage of your guests book direct with you without the aid of a travel advisor?
I'd say right now, if the number of agent bookings is growing, it's been a hard, we haven't cracked the code up until this year. So up until this year, it was about 20% through agents. Now it's growing. It's probably 25, 30% through agents.
Awesome. Okay. And just so you know, I did get this question a couple of times. We are going to have a recording of this presentation available after we're done here, and we'll send it out to anyone who signed up that maybe wasn't able to attend. Those of you who attended will also get the link. You can share it with anyone else you know, and we'll also post it to our site. So yes, this will be available. Okay. And someone asked, I see you're testing guides. What about guests?
I'm sorry, say that again, Kasey?
They said, I see you're testing your guides for COVID. What about the guests who are coming on the trips?
So we actually send out what we call our standards pledge. We're a guest pledge. So we send out a list requirements for every guest before the trip. a couple weeks before the trip. Things like being conscious of who you're around, limiting your outside contacts, and then we encourage testing. As Kasey mentioned, Alaska requires testing. We're finding that a lot of our guests are getting tested. As it gets easier to get tested, but we're not requiring it other than Alaska, but we are suggesting it.
Mm-hmm. And we have been actually having a lot of people do it. And this is so funny that this person asked this, because Dan and I just dealt with this question. Let me see if I can find it here. Melody asked, how do you deal with the 72-hour turnaround for COVID testing when here in California, it takes about 5 days to get results? And it's so funny you asked that, because for our Alaska trip last week, Dan and I were on a call at 6:00 p.m. the night before the guests were supposed to leave. They were freaking out because they hadn't gotten their test back. They were from California, and they did end up finding a rapid test place that they could go to. They pushed their flights back, actually, got the test done at a rapid testing site in San Diego, and flew out the next day after they had their test results back within an hour. That being said, there are overnight COVID testing services that you can have. Dan and I have both tried a couple of different ones. The one that I really like is called Pixel by LabCorp. And it's literally just a test that you can order. Like today, if I ordered it before 3:00 p.m. Eastern time, I'd have it on my doorstep by tomorrow morning. I take the test, it's just a nasal swab, put it in my little container. I FedEx it back. It comes with a FedEx shipping container and label and everything that's already prepaid. And then you just put it in the mail and you have it sent back, and you get the results within 24 hours. So that's how we've been recommending all of our guests to get around the Alaska testing requirement. And it's actually been working pretty well. Do you have anything to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, we tested a bunch of the online services. Pixel was the one that was the best, but the ones that we've been using typically have been turning around in 24 hours. And again, there's always an exception, but Kasey and I both just got tested last week, and both of us got our test results back within 24 hours of sending them off.
Yeah, and that's coming from us who are based in Montana, where we don't have anywhere that will get us test results back locally within 7 to 10 days is what they're saying to get our test results back right now. So that's a nice service to be able to have that FedEx directly to your door, and it's billable to your insurance. We didn't have to pay a dime, other than of course your insurance payments, but that is a pretty nice service to have. If it's out of pocket, it's like $120, so it's not too bad. So Nancy's asking, as a privately held company, I assume you are, how solid are your financials?
I'd say they're solid. I mean, literally, we're actually surprisingly doing well for this year. Again, this is an anomaly. We've been doing this 30 plus years. So literally, we've been around the block. We've been with the same bank for 20 years. Yeah, I would say they're everybody in this COVID world, especially in tourism, getting hit hard. The SBA has done well. We did actually get some PPP money that really helped us. We never laid anybody off. It helped us a lot. So I'd say they're quite strong, actually, especially for a tour operator these days.
Yeah, I have to agree. And we're doing all right because we have these domestic tours in our back pocket that people are still traveling on. I know that it's maybe a whole different ballgame for the operators out there who are only operating international tours and have no tours they can offer right now. So we are still offering tours. We're still rolling, so.
In fact, we've actually, Kasey, we probably should have talked about that earlier. We've actually been approached numerous times and signed a couple contracts to offer domestic tours for international companies.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's seeing that that's going to be the trend, is U.S. travelers traveling locally. So we are very fortunate to be offering those tours already and have those expertise in place, because you can't just set something like that up overnight, unfortunately, if you have no experience in it. So, all right. And someone is asking, how soon before a trip are you testing your guides? And can you talk more about the random testing of your guides?
Sure. I mean, literally what we're trying to do is, so all of our guides, obviously we have about 20% of our guides working and 20% of our scheduled departures. So we tested them pre-season before they started. And then typically what we're trying to do, there's no set policy, but what we're trying to do is, for example, we have a window of 2 weeks where the guides are off. And then before they go back to, we're testing them again. And it seems to be working pretty. So anytime they either start a series or had a break in a series, we're trying to get them tested and get them kind of in a pattern of doing that.
Yes, and of course, recommending that if they have any symptoms whatsoever, they're booted off that trip. We got to figure out plan B at that point. So, we get a COVID test done at that point. They can't guide until they test negative or, whatever. I mean, each trip is going to be taken on a case-by-case basis. If something were to happen, I know we did actually get a question about, what happens if someone does become ill on a trip? What are you going to do? And we have, as part of our operating plan, evacuation, protocol in place if someone were to become ill on a trip. But when it comes down to it, you have to treat any case of that completely individually, because it totally depends on where you're at on the trip, what the guy, what size of the group is on the trip, what vehicles you have on the trip, where the trip is at, all sorts of different things come into play. But we do have emergency evacuation protocols, and basically the first step is to get the ill guest separated from the rest of the group and quarantine them in one place, away from everyone else. So, and maybe Dan has something else to offer to that, but I guess the quarantine and the protocol for evacuating someone can get a little complicated in certain situations, but we are willing to do whatever it takes to help on the ground here in Billings and with our guide team to get things handled.
Yeah, I think it's no different than just literally staying home as well. I mean, literally until till it happens, everybody's dealing with this just huge unknown. But if somebody we're actually asking, obviously if anybody has any symptoms at all, they can't come on the trip. And if they have symptoms while on the trip, as Kasey pointed out, distancing them from the group and making arrangements to get them either home, which, even that's going to be a challenge. We just had this question come up in Alaska, what happens if we get sick on the trip? You can't leave Alaska. You don't want to put them on an airplane. So it's going to be their responsibility to quarantine. Obviously, we'll work with them finding where to quarantine, but it is going to be, there's a lot of responsibility on the guest to be responsible as well. We're kind of just all working together on this.
Mm-hmm. And we do, we will help in any way that we possibly can. That's a fact. So if and when it happens, we're going to be here to help figure it out. So, and we're not taking any guest temperatures on tour. Someone asked, are we taking guest temps on tour? No, we have not invested in the forehead thermometers. I know that that's a common thing these days, but we have decided to not do that at this point. We did talk a little bit about the pre-travel guest pledge that someone is asking about. That's the email that we're sending out to people with information on how to not, or how to go about your daily life before you come on our trip. Basically quarantining yourself, not watching who you're around, things like that. So you're not out and about exposing yourself to the virus before you travel out to Montana or Alaska, one of these places we're operating in. But that pre-travel guest pledge is just an email that we send out to everyone that just gives some suggestions on how to go about your day before you go on your trip, how to behave on the trip itself during the time of COVID, and what to do after the trip. So it's like a before, during, and after plan. And another thing that we have initiated as well is a COVID questionnaire that we give out to all guests on morning one of the trip that just says, it's basically the same thing you'd see in a hospital if you went in. Asking questions about, do you have a temperature over 100.4 degrees? Are you feeling sick right now? There's 4 different questions. If you answer yes to any of them, it's a flag that you shouldn't be going on that trip. I don't think we've had anyone answer yes yet, because hopefully you're not even in that destination if you're answering yes to any of the questions on this COVID questionnaire. But it is something we're doing as a double check as well. If you're feeling sick, just don't come on the trip or don't travel. So.
Or even if you're uncertain about, that the contact tracing is becoming more and more of a positive situation, and so if you're flagged as having been in contact with somebody that has the virus, then you would not want to go on the trip, even if you're asymptomatic or don't have the symptoms. Literally, we're asking everybody to be responsible, play it safe, err on the side of caution, and there's always next year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. And do you recommend the RV-based trip for a solo traveler? how self-sufficient would you need to be? This person has owned one before and they can require a lot of work and repairs, which you and I both know as well. And how safe is a female traveling alone by RV? Are the campsites arranged? That kind of thing.
Great questions, tough ones. The campsites are arranged. I would personally feel safe doing it regardless of who it is. I think it is a great way to travel. And the RV camps are, it's no different than going into a hotel. You're going into a developed, the kind of camps that we're doing are the local, kind of well-managed camps. They're not the wilderness camps. If you're seriously looking about it, you might consider, if it was just me, I'd get a small Sprinter motorhome, not a motorhome, but a Sprinter van. Some of those are getting amazingly outfitted and really well. They're small, they're self-contained, and for one or two people to be ideal. And then you're not going to have the kind of issues you have with the big boxy motorhomes that Kasey's deathly afraid of.
They are a little crazy, yeah. Okay, and what class of service are your small group travel, like your adult tours, considered domestic? This person does not like roughing it. So what class of service are they?
Definitely not roughing it. I kind of always struggle with that class thing, 4 stars, 5 stars, 2 stars, because it's so subjective, right? There are no 5-star properties in Yellowstone National Park, for example, but the destination, in my humble opinion, makes them 5 stars. We're looking for the nicest accommodation, the most appropriate accommodation in every area, in every region. Might not necessarily, it's not the Four Seasons, it is a park property. But we're trying to get the best park property we can that makes the most sense for that itinerary. But the key to it is definitely not roughing. We have 1 or 2 camping trips around the world. Currently not offering anything camping in the States unless it is glamping, which in my humble opinion doesn't qualify as camping. Anytime you have a butler and a copper bathtub and heated ceramic floors, that's not camping. But literally, definitely not roughing it. I would say if you really pin me down, the experience is 5-star, the customer service is 5-star, and everything else might be 4-star.
Nice. All right, and Kathy's asking, when should I consider a Life is Good trip?
Tomorrow.
We need that kind of energy right now.
I just spent the weekend, Kasey and I actually last weekend spent the weekend with Bert Jacobs, the founder of Life is Good. And they're just such an amazing company and individuals. We literally believe that we need that Life is Good positivity now more than ever. We're not running any this year. We've got our full schedule of probably a half dozen plus next year, but they're not that much different than what we normally would do. We do put a little bit more emphasis on maybe a little bit more learning or practice, and the Life is Good folks have a little bit more say in what we're doing and how we're presenting the programs. But they are clearly we share the same values, and they're absolutely great programs with just a slight twist to them. So I would say whenever you're ready. And again, they're not that different than our regular scheduled trips. But if you like that Life is Good and you get like that Life is Good t-shirt, literally next year we'll be running the full schedule of them. Montana, Utah, Canadian Rockies, Costa Rica.
Nice. And Deborah's asking, do we do winter trips to Yellowstone?
We do. We have a couple of different winter trips to Yellowstone Tetons and Yellowstone. Amazing time to visit the park, something really special about it. So yes, we do. And those are on our website, or you can call and ask for details. I actually love the park in winter. We're only a couple hours out of the park, so we go there quite often, including in the winter.
Nice. And do you always have 2 guides on every trip?
2 or 3. On the family trips, we'll actually add a 3rd guide. We do custom trips with 1 guide occasionally if it's like a family of 4 and they only want 1 guide. A lot of it depends on that exact specific trips and the logistics of it all. But anytime we're over 6 guests, we definitely have 2 guides. Sometimes, often under 6, we still have 2 guides. But again, it just depends on that specific trip. But that 6-to-1 guest to guide ratio is something we insist on pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. All right, and Donna's Machu Picchu trip this September is probably going to be canceled at this point if it hasn't been already. She's saying, what is available this September 5th through the 20th, let's say? And as far as flying to Montana, will I have to be quarantined when I return to New York?
No. So best bet would be to call the office and talk to the sales team, because things are constantly changing. Spaces are opening up, spaces are filling up. So that's the best bet. We do have some great programs in September. We're actually adding a few more in September because we do, are starting to see interest in the fall. We're hoping that things get settled down. Montana does not have a quarantine either coming or going. So in Peru is actually doing pretty well. They got hit really hard and we're doing really rough. But they're on the rebound as well. So September, yes, I probably wouldn't count on it, but I would definitely check with the office. Probably call Carol. She's passionate about Peru, knows exactly what's going on, and then she can recommend some options for you.
Yeah, and in September right now in that time frame, we're still going to be running our Montana trips and our Utah trips, and maybe we'll introduce a few others depending on what's going on at that time. But as of right now, Montana's not on New York's quarantine list for coming back to New York as well, as far as I reviewed the other day anyway. But things change, like Dano said, so it's literally changing by the day, and what's going on today might not be the case tomorrow. So just, call and stay in touch with us. We're trying to stay on top of as much of this stuff as we possibly can. So LG, I think that's how she says her name, LG. She says, come to Virginia, Dan. We have Shenandoah National Park, Civil War sites, rolling countryside, Monticello, and Mount Vernon. It's beautiful over there.
So I do own a small stake in an inn in Virginia out of Culpeper. And that's always been on our list and kind of our aspiration. So I love Virginia. And so, yes, we will absolutely, it will be added to the list.
Yes, we've definitely been talking about Virginia, so I think it'll be there in no time. And so Joanne is asking, if I have clients go on your site, will they see a better price than if you give me a quote directly? And do you have guides that speak French in Canada?
So absolutely not. Everybody gets the same price. So literally full transparency. And literally there's no value in what I would call doing an end around. And we make sure we stick with that even after the trip. When they're thinking about their next trip, they call us directly. We're going to call you up and say, hey, Joe Smith just called, what's going on? And then do we have guides that speak French in Canada? Yes. A lot of them do, actually. Some of them you can't understand, but yes, we do. Our Canadian guides are phenomenal. That, to me, Canada has done such an amazing job of creating an industry or a profession that guiding is a true profession, and the requirements they have for education is second to none. So we love our Canadian guides.
Yep. And the same person is asking, do you have trips in Canada this summer, as they're not going down to the States? This person is in Canada.
Oh, no, we don't, because Canada is not allowing U.S. citizens without quarantine. And again, we haven't figured out a workaround with that. So we canceled our Canadian Rockies series until next year. We're actually starting to see it fill up for next year, but no, we don't. We probably could, depending on where you're at in Canada, we could make some recommendations. So if you shoot us an email, give us a call, we can look at doing that. But unfortunately, Canada was one of the casualties this year for us. It's usually a very strong program for us. And we had to just kind of admit we were whooped and we couldn't do it.
Yep. Cool. And then if guests get sick on a tour, can they get tested on tour and then stay on the trip?
That's a great question. If they get sick on the tour and I don't think it would work. I honestly just don't think. I think the minute they don't feel well, or the minute they have a temperature or any of those conditions, we want them off that trip. And then by the time they got tested and got the results back, the trip would be over. So probably not realistic to think that would make a difference.
Yeah, and our number one priority is safety. So not only safety of you, quarantining yourself, but also of the rest of the guests. So we would definitely have to, again, look at it on a case-by-case basis, analyze all the different factors involved, and make a decision. But most likely, you're not going to be finishing out the trip because they are only 6 days long. So you're going to be waiting for at least 2 or 3 of those days somewhere. All right, we're getting close here. Do we have any trips with fly fishing?
Well, we're not a fishing outfitter. However, gosh, half our trips have opportunities to fly fish on. We're doing this trip to North Carolina in a couple of weeks, and they're all spending a day getting fly fishing lessons. Kasey and I were just down in Paradise Valley, which is on our Montana program, and we were drooling over the pond at the lodge to go fishing in. So typically, almost every destination has that as an option that a guest could do if they wanted to.
Cool. Let's see. LG was just saying that it's great to have a health professional administer the test for coronavirus because you won't be able to get that nasal swab all the way up into your brain cavity. But I should be clear that the test that we're recommending, this Pixel by LabCorp test, is not like the ridiculous nasal swab that you get at your local clinic. It's actually just like a very simple, it's a Q-tip that you literally just swab around in each nose, or each nostril 3 to 4 times, stick that into a container. You don't have to do the stick up into your brain thing yourself. So.
And depending on which company you use, one of the companies actually walks you through it on a Zoom call.
And that one is not a nasal swab. It's actually spitting into a test tube, and then they test your saliva.
Right. So that one's that. And then the other ones, they have a video tutorial on how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So good stuff. All right. And we have a few people asking if we can recommend the name of these tests when we send out an email with the recording. I would say if you are very curious about these tests, just email Dan or myself and we can email you back the names. And
yeah, we tested, no pun intended, we tested everyone we could find between somebody on our staff just to kind of monitor those turnaround times so we knew what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. And it did sound like there might be some updates on one of the testing sites that the tests are taking longer, maybe on Pixel by LabCorp. It wasn't super clear what this person was saying. But that is, again, changing day by day. But there are like 5 different at-home test providers, so one might be different than another, and we have the names of several that we can provide that you can kind of check around. That's what we've been doing, is just jumping around, as the times see fit. So things are changing by the day.
And again, Kasey and I both got tested. Whenever we do it at the office, we do it with we keep testing different test companies. And we did it with 2 different companies last week, and we both got the results. Yeah. Cool. And just to answer your question, Mark, on when this will be posted on our website, we'll have it up probably by end of day today, but if not today, it'll definitely be on tomorrow. So, all right. And we'll also send out that link as soon as we get this thing recorded and ready to publish. We'll send it out in an email to anyone who's registered, and you can share it with anyone you want or review it again. So awesome. I think we answered all 57 questions that came in. This is going to go down as a record as the longest webinar in history, 1 hour and 33 minutes. So you guys are quite patient. If anything's still left on, please don't hesitate. We do pride ourselves in being a small, touchable company. Literally, we're here. So just email us. Email me, email Kasey. There's cell phone numbers, text numbers, you name it, we're here. So if you have any questions, we didn't cover it, we weren't clear on anything, you want to challenge us on anything, we're here. Bring it on. This is what we're here for.
Yeah, so. And we honestly just love this business. We love the travel industry, and even with all of the craziness going on, we're here. We're living this every day, and Dan and I are out on the trips. I mean, we were out yesterday in Yellowstone guiding a trip, and we just want to dive in and help figure out how to keep people traveling, because that's what we do and that's what we love. And we want to just make sure we're doing it as safely as possible while also figuring out this crazy time that we're living in. So thanks for helping us figure this out alongside us.
And again, just a kind of a shout out to everybody again, thanks for joining us today. It does mean a lot to us. We learn from this interaction. We'll go back and review this and say, hey, what did we answer well? Where did we bomb? And look to live in a constant state of improvement. So thank you. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your support. Together, we're all going to get through this, and we will be traveling in somewhat normal conditions again at some point.
Yes, I agree. Can't wait. Awesome. Well, anything else you want to say before we all log off here? We have a lot of thank yous coming in, lots of people saying that it was a great presentation and they learned a ton about us and what we're doing and how trips are operating in the time of COVID. So I think that's about all that we could have hoped for. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We really appreciated you taking the time out of your day and hope to see you out on a trip soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Bye.